Hey, hands up, now. Don't make this harder than it is.
I'm just loading groceries. What's the problem?
Problem is you arguing. On your knees, do it.
This isn't necessary.
I said kneel. You think you're special or something?
No, but you should probably...
The parking lot lights flickered on just as the order landed sharp, public, humiliating, on your knees. It was a Dallas evening, thick with heat and diesel, a grocery receipt still warm in his hand. Shoppers slowed. Phones hovered. The man complied, because survival sometimes means obedience. What the officer didn't know, couldn't see, was the weight stitched into that man's posture. Decades of command, a career bound by law, and a badge that outranked his own. Stay with this story, not for outrage, but for clarity. For the quiet mechanics of power, bias, and consequence. Subscribe and listen closely. The truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it kneels first, then stands, with receipts. The parking lot breathes heat. Concrete still holds the sun, releasing it in waves that blur the white lines and soften the edges of cars easing into their spaces. It's just after 7, a weekday. Families drifting out with paper bags and plastic smiles. Somewhere, a receipt printer chirps its last note before silence. The patrol unit rolls in slow, tires whispering, the engine settling into an idle that feels deliberate. The officer steps out with the practiced geometry of training shoulders square, hand resting close enough to the holster to be seen without being touched. His body camera blinks to life, a small red eye catching the scene with indifference. He scans. He fixes. He decides. Dallas Police General Orders require officer presence to be commanding and clear. His voice follows the book. Sir, hands where I can see them. The man turns. Mid-40s, maybe older if you count the years he carries himself through space. He's wearing slacks, a collared shirt darkened slightly at the collar by sweat. Nothing hurried in his movement. He raises his hands not high, not low, just enough. The way you do when you know the choreography. What's this about, officer? The words are even, measured. No challenge, no apology. The officer doesn't answer the question. He doesn't have to. Procedure allows for commands without explanation during a detention, especially when the officer claims uncertainty. He steps closer, boots grinding small stones into dust. On your knees. The sentence lands heavier than it sounds. It's not shouted, it's not dramatic. It's said like a checkbox. Nearby, a shopping cart squeals. Someone slows their walk. A phone lifts, then hesitates, then lifts again. The man pauses. A fraction of a second that stretches. In that pause lives 1,000 calculations. Escalation curves, use of force matrices, the math of survival that never appears in training manuals but always applies. He looks down at the asphalt, notes the oil stains, the cracks filled with old rain. Kneeling on concrete means abrasions. It means vulnerability. It means optics. Yes, sir, he says quietly. He lowers himself carefully, one knee first, then the other, hands still visible. The heat seeps through fabric into bone. A small sound escapes breath, not pain. Silence follows. The officer shifts his weight, reassured by compliance. His radio murmurs with coded calm, a status check, a routine tone that implies control. Don't move. I'm not, the man replies. Shoppers pass in a slow arc, pretending not to stare while doing exactly that. A child asks a question and is hushed. The parking lot has become a stage, though no one applied for a role. The body camera records everything at 30 frames per second, flattening the moment into data. The officer circles once, keeping distance. His eyes flick to the man's hands, then to his face, then back again. Training says, watch the hands. Training also says compliance reduces risk. Training doesn't say what to do with the unease that creeps in when compliance feels informed. What's your name? The officer asks. The man gives it. Calmly, clearly. Why were you walking back to your car? The question sounds rehearsed, a bridge toward justification. I bought groceries, the man says. He doesn't gesture. He doesn't point to the bag sitting neatly on the trunk of a sedan. He knows sudden movements get misread. He knows the language of control. A supervisor is en route per policy, though the word hasn't been spoken. The officer's posture tightens, sensing time rather than threat. He glances at the storefront windows reflecting red and blue in soft pulses. The kneeling man keeps his eyes forward, fixed on nothing in particular. The air hums. Engines idle. Somewhere a siren fades into the city's constant breath. The order has been given. It's been obeyed. And in that obedience, something fragile has been exposed. An imbalance so ordinary it almost goes unnoticed. Almost. The officer steps closer again. His voice drops, clipped. "Do you have any weapons?" "No," the man says. Another pause. Another look. The camera keeps rolling. And the ground beneath this moment, policy, power, perception, begins to shift quietly before anyone realizes it's moving. Time doesn't move forward so much as it thickens. Seconds pile up, heavy and slow, each one pressing the man's knees deeper into the concrete. The heat has nowhere to go now. It rises, wraps, settles. Sweat traces a line down his spine and disappears beneath his belt. He keeps his breathing steady, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The same cadence taught in rooms with whiteboards and laminated posters, stress management for high-risk encounters. He remembers it because it works. The officer's radio crackles again. "Unit 3 to 4? Status? Code 4, the officer replies. A beat too quickly. "All good. Situation under control." The words are for the airwaves, not the scene. Compliance, the man knows, is a language. It has grammar, syntax, inflection. Too slow reads as defiance. Too fast reads as guilt. Silence can be respect or resistance depending on who's listening. He chooses stillness. Stillness reads safest. A woman loading groceries into an SUV pauses longer than she needs to. Her eyes flick from the officer to the kneeling man and back again, searching for context, for permission to understand. She doesn't find it. No one does. The parking lot has rules, but they aren't posted. "Keep your hands up," the officer says, though the hands haven't moved. "Yes, sir." The officer paces, boot steps measured, circling the perimeter of control. His jaw is tight. He's young enough that his uniform still looks new, creases sharp, patches bright. He's following training as he understands it. Officer, safety first. Scene control. Dominate the encounter early. The academy taught him that hesitation gets officers hurt. It didn't teach him how bias sounds when it thinks it's caution. The man's mind drifts not away, but inward. He catalogs, details the way he always has. Badge numbers are missing from sight. Body cam is active. He saw the blink. Good. Witness count. At least 5 civilians within direct line of sight. Lighting adequate. Audio likely clear. Dallas policy requires reasonable suspicion articulated before prolonged detention. Kneeling isn't policy, it's practice. A gray space officers step into when the law feels too slow. "Why are you so calm?" the officer asks suddenly. The question slips out, unguarded. It's the most honest thing he's said. The man doesn't answer right away. He knows better than to psychoanalyze an armed stranger in public. He keeps his voice neutral. "I'm doing what you asked." The officer nods, but something in his eyes shifts. Calm doesn't fit the narrative he's rehearsed. Calm complicates things. A supervisor's ETA murmurs through the radio, now 3 minutes. Standard. Policy compliant. The word supervisor changes the air. The officer straightens, conscious of posture, of optics. He adjusts his stance so the camera catches authority, not uncertainty. The man's knees ache. He lets the sensation exist without reaction. Pain acknowledged, not performed. Around him, the city continues its small movements, cars starting, doors closing, a laugh that feels out of place. He wonders who will remember this tomorrow and who will scroll past it tonight. "Do you understand why I stopped you?" the officer asks. "I don't," the man says. Still calm, still precise. Silence stretches again. The officer looks away, toward the entrance of the store, as if answers might come through the sliding doors. They don't. What comes instead is a black and white cruiser easing into the lot, lights washing the scene in alternating color. Authority arriving to review authority. The kneeling man feels the shift before he sees it. This is the moment compliance usually ends either with release or restraint. He remains still, hands visible, language intact, because he knows something the officer doesn't yet, and because sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do in a system built on assumption is comply perfectly and wait. The supervisor's cruiser settles into a space crookedly, like it stopped thinking halfway through the turn. Doors open. The night inhales. A taller officer steps out. Slower, older, the kind of posture that comes from years of letting rooms adjust to you instead of the other way around. His body camera's already live. Policy requires it for supervisory review. He takes in the scene in a sweep officer, kneeling man, witnesses, bags on the trunk. He doesn't rush. What do we have? The supervisor asks. The question isn't accusatory, it's procedural. An invitation for articulation. The officer answers in the shorthand of patrol reports. Suspicious behavior. Subject wouldn't explain presence. For officer safety, I detained. The words sound thinner now that they're out in the open air. The supervisor's eyes move not to the officer, but to the man on his knees. He clocks the posture, the stillness, the way the hands are held, not high, not low, but trained. He's seen that before. Sir, the supervisor says, voice level, you okay? The man looks up for the first time. Not quickly, not defiantly. He meets the supervisor's gaze and nods once. I am. All right. You can stand up. The order is quiet. Corrective. It lands with more authority than the first one because it restores balance instead of breaking it. The man rises slowly, joints protesting, blood rushing back into places that went numb. He brushes grit from his slacks without drama. The moment feels heavier standing than it did kneeling. Thank you, he says. The supervisor turns back to the officer. Walk me through it again. The officer starts over, this time longer, adding details that weren't there before. A hand gesture. A look. Something about demeanor. The supervisor listens without interruption, but his eyes keep drifting back to the man, to the groceries, to the witnesses who haven't left. Sir, the supervisor says again, can I see some ID? Yes, the man replies. Before I reach, I'm going to get my wallet from my jacket. Go ahead. The movement is slow, narrated, clean. He produces a wallet, opens it, and hands it over with 2 fingers. The supervisor takes it, glances down, and stills. It's subtle. A pause measured in fractions of a second. But it's there. The supervisor looks up. Then back down. Then up again, this time with a different expression. Recognition, not surprise. Weight, not shock. The wallet contains more than a driver's license. It carries credentials. Laminated. Official. The kind printed on thick stock, meant to last. The supervisor closes the wallet carefully, like it contains something fragile. Sir, he says, and the word changes shape. Is this current? Oplicom. Yes, the man answers. A quiet recalibration ripples through the scene. Radio stays silent, but something unspoken moves fast. Rank doesn't announce itself loudly, it settles. The officer shifts, suddenly aware of his stance, his tone, his earlier certainty. The body camera keeps blinking, impartial. The supervisor hands the wallet back with both hands. Colonel, he says, low enough that only the 3 of them hear it. The word doesn't echo, but it lands. Hard, the colonel nods once. No smile, no satisfaction, just acknowledgement. The officer's face drains of something, not fear exactly, but assumption. His mouth opens, then closes. He swallows. I didn't know, he says. I know, the colonel replies. Around them, witnesses sense the turn even if they don't understand it. Phones lower. The air loosens. But beneath the relief, something sharper takes hold, a realization forming in real time. The kneel ended because of rank, not because it was wrong. And that truth, once seen, doesn't let go easily. Fluorescent light has a way of flattening everything it touches. Faces lose depth, shadows retreat. Inside the station, the night becomes paperwork. The parking lot is already a file number now. logged by time and GPS coordinates, indexed by 2 body cameras and a supervisor's arrival. The colonel sits at a metal table, hands folded, posture unchanged. This room is quieter than the asphalt, but it's heavier. The supervisor stands near a terminal, pulling up policy. Dallas Police General Orders detentions, searches, and arrests scroll past in black and white. Articulation is the spine of the process. Without it, everything collapses. The officer sits across from the colonel, uniform less crisp now, sweat dried into darker patches. His knee bounces. He doesn't notice. Start from the beginning, the supervisor says. Exact timeline. The officer does. He names the minute he entered the lot, the reason he claims drew his attention, the decision to issue commands. He uses words like perceived threat and officer safety. They sound procedural, but the supervisor listens for gaps, the places where feeling masquerades as fact. The colonel listens too. He says nothing. Silence, he knows, is not absence. It's pressure. Body cam footage plays on a monitor. The kneel again, now framed and flattened, stripped of heat and context but not of meaning. The colonel watches without blinking. He's reviewed footage like this before, hundreds of times. The law says recordings are evidence, not truth. They require interpretation, and interpretation reveals priorities. Where was the reasonable suspicion? The supervisor asks. The officer hesitates. Just long enough. I believed he might flee, he says. The supervisor pauses the video. The colonel's hands are still, visible, calm. Based on what? The supervisor asks. The room waits. Policy requires specificity. Vague fear doesn't survive review. Internal Affairs is notified before the report is finished. Not as punishment yet, but as process. Any detention involving potential policy deviation triggers a review. The system is slow by design. It favors documentation over instinct. Tonight, instinct is on trial. The colonel finally speaks. His voice is steady, tired, precise. I complied because escalation kills people. That's not an opinion. That's a statistic. No one interrupts him. He continues, not to accuse, but to record. I knew the policy. I knew my rights. I also knew the environment. I chose the option most likely to end with me going home. The supervisor nods, writing. The officer looks down. Forms stack. Timelines align. Witness statements trickle in electronically. Accounts that mention tone, posture, the word times knees, asterisk. One line stands out, asterisk. He didn't resist. He just waited, asterisk. Training history is pulled. The officer's record is clean, no prior complaints. That fact doesn't erase this moment. It contextualizes it. Systems don't fail loudly, they drift. Hours later, the colonel signs his statement. He doesn't embellish, he doesn't editorialize, he knows how language shapes outcome. As he stands to leave, the supervisor meets his eyes. I'm sorry, the supervisor says. It's personal. It's also insufficient. The colonel nods. I know. Outside, the night feels cooler. The report will move through channels. Command review, internal affairs, training division. Consequences will arrive without ceremony. But something else has been filed too. Unrecorded and irreversible. A question the system can't ignore now. If rank hadn't been revealed, how long would the kneel have lasted? And what would it have taken to make it stop? The answer waits, forming, as policy inches toward accountability, and the city prepares to hear what happened when compliance spoke, and the system finally had to listen. Morning arrives without apology. The parking lot is empty now, scrubbed clean by time and traffic, as if nothing ever happened there. But inside the department, the incident has weight. It moves through inboxes and briefing rooms. It becomes a case number with a subject line that avoids emotion. Language does that. It dulls the sharp edges, so systems can keep moving. The officer is placed on administrative duty pending review. That's the phrase. Not suspension, not punishment, a pause. His weapon is logged, his patrol car reassigned. He sits through interviews where questions are asked the same way, every time. Because consistency is how institutions protect themselves from ambiguity. He answers carefully. Less confidence now, more reflection than he expected. The colonel returns to work the next day. Different building, different chain of command. His uniform carries weight people rarely see until it changes a room. He briefs his own staff with the same restraint he used in that parking lot. Facts first, feelings later. He doesn't name the officer, he names the behavior. This wasn't about one person, he tells them. It was about how easily procedure becomes permission. No one interrupts. They know his resume, they also know his restraint is intentional. Internal Affairs completes its review in weeks, not months. Body cam footage, witness statements, policy analysis. The conclusion is careful, precise, unavoidable. The detention violated departmental standards. The kneeling order lacked articulable justification. Bias is not alleged directly, it rarely is, but the corrective action implies it plainly enough. The officer receives discipline consistent with policy. Mandatory retraining, a formal reprimand, monitoring. His career doesn't end, it bends. He sits in a classroom again, watching slides about implicit bias and de-escalation, hearing phrases he thought he understood. This time, they land differently, not because of outrage, but because of proximity. Across the city, a training bulletin circulates. Quietly, it revises language around scene control. It clarifies that kneeling is not a compliance tool. Supervisors are instructed to intervene earlier. The memo doesn't mention names. It doesn't need to. Everyone knows. The colonel testifies once briefly before a civilian oversight panel. He answers questions the way he always has. Direct, grounded. He doesn't perform anger. He doesn't soften truth. In that moment, he says, "The system worked only after it recognized my rank." That's the problem. There's no applause, just notes being taken. Weeks later, a recruit class hears the story during orientation. Not dramatized, not sensationalized. Presented as a case study, the instructor pauses the video before the kneel and asks a question that hangs longer than expected. What are your options here? Hands rise. Different answers this time. The parking lot never makes the news the way outrage demands. There's no viral cycle, no shouting matches. That absence feels deliberate. Justice, when it's procedural, rarely trends. But it endures in quieter ways in policy edits, in change pauses, in the moments officers choose explanation over command. One evening, the colonel returns to the same store. Different week, same lights. He walks the lot without incident. No one recognizes him. That's the point. He loads groceries, returns the cart, pauses for just a second where it happened. Not to reclaim the space, to acknowledge it. Standing there now feels different than kneeling did then. Not triumphant, not resolved, just grounded. He knows the system didn't fix itself because of him. It shifted because it had to look at itself clearly, without rank blurring the view. That's rare and fragile. As he drives away, traffic swallowing the space behind him, the lesson lingers, not loud enough to demand attention, but steady enough to last. Compliance spoke that night. The system listened eventually. And for once, listening led to change. Morning arrives without apology. The parking lot is empty now, scrubbed clean by time and traffic, as if nothing ever happened there. But inside the department, the incident has weight. It moves through inboxes and briefing rooms. It becomes a case number with a subject line that avoids emotion. Language does that. It dulls the sharp edges, so systems can keep moving. The officer is placed on administrative duty pending review. That's the phrase. Not suspension, not punishment. A pause. His weapon is logged, his patrol car reassigned. He sits through interviews where questions are asked the same way, every time, because consistency is how institutions protect themselves from ambiguity. He answers carefully. Less confidence now, more reflection than he expected. The colonel returns to work the next day. Different building, different chain of command. His uniform carries weight people rarely see until it changes a room. He briefs his own staff with the same restraint he used in that parking lot. Facts first, feelings later. He doesn't name the officer, he names the behavior. This wasn't about one person, he tells them. It was about how easily procedure becomes permission. No one interrupts. They know his resume. They also know his restraint is intentional. Internal Affairs completes its review in weeks, not months. Body cam footage, witness statements, policy analysis. The conclusion is careful, precise, unavoidable. The detention violated departmental standards. The kneeling order lacked articulable justification. Bias is not alleged directly, it rarely is, but the corrective action implies it plainly enough. The officer receives discipline consistent with policy. Mandatory retraining, a formal reprimand, monitoring. His career doesn't end, it bends. He sits in a classroom again, watching slides about implicit bias and de-escalation, hearing phrases he thought he understood. This time, they land differently. Not because of outrage, but because of proximity. Across the city, a training bulletin circulates. Quietly. It revises language around scene control. It clarifies that kneeling is not a compliance tool. Supervisors are instructed to intervene earlier. The memo doesn't mention names. It doesn't need to. Everyone knows. The colonel testifies once briefly before a civilian oversight panel. He answers questions the way he always has. Direct, grounded. He doesn't perform anger. He doesn't soften truth. In that moment, he says, the system worked only after it recognized my rank. That's the problem. There's no applause. Just notes being taken. Weeks later, a recruit class hears the story during orientation. Not dramatized, not sensationalized. Presented as a case study, the instructor pauses the video before the kneel and asks a question that hangs longer than expected. What are your options here? Hands rise. Different answers this time. The parking lot never makes the news the way outrage demands. There's no viral cycle, no shouting matches. That absence feels deliberate. Justice, when it's procedural, rarely trends, but it endures in quieter ways in policy edits, in change pauses, in the moments officers choose explanation over command. One evening, the colonel returns to the same store. Different week, same lights. He walks the lot without incident. No one recognizes him. That's the point. He loads groceries, returns the cart, pauses for just a second where it happened. Not to reclaim the space, to acknowledge it. Standing there now feels different than kneeling did then. Not triumphant, not resolved, just grounded. He knows the system didn't fix itself because of him. It shifted because it had to look at itself clearly, without rank blurring the view. That's rare and fragile. As he drives away, traffic swallowing the space behind him, the lesson lingers, not loud enough to demand attention, but steady enough to last. Compliance spoke that night. The system listened eventually, and for once, listening led to change.